And we're live. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Yes, my name is ArrowFyre. It is a bad night to do a live stream with everything that's on TV for the evening, for the football, for the X Factor, for Doctor Who. But you are a champion if you come along to watch it. And what's good of one champion? 3 additional champions. I've got them here tonight. I have Phil, Plastic Craic. I have Lee, Spiderfather, and I have Jamie, Storm Toy Photography. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me this evening. Let us play a loud intro. Mind your ears, Jamie.
Let's talk Transformers.
Is that woken you up? Has that cleared your ears?
What?
I certainly hope so. See how it goes. Right. We'll start off with the smaller items of news of the week, and it's not going to be too much, but some things that I thought were worth talking about, and they are third party only. Sorry, Jeremy. But you should see that. If I zoom in on a bit more. So this is, I can't remember the full name of it. It's Guardian. Yeah, that's a bit big. I can't remember the next name. Was it Guardian Mechanical Studios, or have I just merged a lot of companies together? But yeah, it is an 07 Optimus Prime. It's very large in the Masterpiece scale. As it goes along into its other modes, you'll see. I'll actually click the right thing. Back of it. Again, it's coming up a bit small. Move it. Yeah, I'm actually fairly impressed with this because, believe it or not, I have got a bit of a movie bot on the go, a bit of a collection on the go. I've got 2 of them and I want to get some more. And I'm being very picky as to what Optimus I should get. And I kind of feel this is going to tick a good box for 07 Prime. There was a Toy World Challenger that I was really looking at, but I think that's kind of last night Prime, very rounded. Any immediate thoughts on this chunky boy?
I like it. I used to have Unique Toys Challenger, actually. I've now got the Legendary Toys repainted KO of the Masterpiece, which is nice, but if this is as good as it looks now, it puts it to shame. So I think if that turns out looking like that, then I'm going to have it. But I doubt I'll ever transform it, because to get from that to that looks like a stress.
It does a bit, doesn't it? I mean, it does. It stands big and tall, as 07 Prime should. But I don't think I downloaded any more photos of it, sadly. But yeah, no, I think it does look really. I don't want to say clean, because they're not clean by design, are they? But yeah, I think it looks interesting. Lee, any thoughts?
I am at an age now where I don't have an hour to sit and transform an arm. I've got 2 figures, which I got before I moved over a year ago, which was so complicated and intricate that I never actually finished converting them. One was a big drift, and the other was that helicopter waspinator, which broke my heart because I really like that figure. So this looks like it's one of those where it's got tons of teeny tiny panels that you need a tweezer to manipulate, and then you've got to line everything up, because that looks fantastic and the truck mode looks very clean, but there's no way you're going to enjoy getting it from one to the other.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think, yeah, even I, as a third-party collector, I'm getting a bit tired of wanting to transform something and then putting aside a good 45 minutes to do so. Like, I yearn for simplicity.
I still like my original 07 leader class Optimus Prime, which is essentially a brick, but he does the job. He looks like the robot and he looks like the truck.
And it gets from A to B without bleeding your fingers. No, I get that. And I don't know. I feel 07 Prime is a hard one to get right, because he's so full of jagged pieces. I don't know. Are they oversimplifying it by making him very...
What you want him to be? The official toys are cutting corners, because there's no way you're going to get it to look like that, because that wasn't designed, just like the animation models, that wasn't designed to transform into the truck. Even the actual character model was a cheat, because it's all just moving bits around, and then you've got a truck. and that ILM admitted that. So trying to make that a real thing is going to get increasingly more complicated as people try to be clever, and it just sucks the fun out of the whole thing.
I just think if you can't hug it, you shouldn't buy it. You know, and it doesn't look like you hug it. But you would hurt yourself. If you get hugged and you hug
you can hug
don't buy it.
It's a hug. It's like hugging a Venus flytrap. You could do it.
Kiss it. Kiss the Venus flytrap. No, but yeah.
You wouldn't rub it against your own groin. Don't.
If you take nothing away from the stream tonight, don't put anything that's as sharp as this against your own groin.
Yes.
Right, well, that's a good time to move on as any, because God knows what other tenuous links you might come out with. We'll move on to a little chubby Bruticus. Phil, what do you think?
I love him. You could hook him, definitely. I think it looks amazing. I really like was it Predaking that did? I think you've got that, haven't you?
I have, yes. So it's Predaking.
They're so expressive, and they look great individually, lovely combined, and yeah, I think that one and the Dinobots just look really, really promising.
I'm just looking forward to the names. I think the names would be a riot. I'm just hoping they are.
Little Bruty.
Yeah.
Little Bruty. I think I've got back shot. There you go. There's a back shot of him. I haven't got the one where they're all in their little individual modes, but I think Blast Off looks really cool. He's like a little chubby space shuttle. I mean, he's just doing his best.
How big are they? Is it combined? How big is it?
5.5 inches.
Tiny.
It's not. They're not huge. He'll be a bit taller because of Vortex. But yeah, he does look adorable. As I've said when I did the review of that little chibi Predaking, they're really good. And Mix actually just said it in the chat, so I'll give him a little bit of screen time. I do think they are an offshoot of Mastermade, because I know no one else who's done that chibi style, and they have very similar packaging.
Very similar.
The only thing I'm thinking is, once you have them, they're good to have. You kind of have to have more like them, because they will not scale with anything else you've got for any shadow of a day. You couldn't say Doctor Wu, Micromasters, Legend scale. You couldn't. It's just in a complete class of its own. So it's good. And it's fun. Maybe you should just have it for the fun. But when you put it alongside like a Fan Stories masterpiece, it does kind of like, it's way, way off. But if you want it, if you like it, get it. That's the ultimate bottom line for this and everything else. Right, finishing up quickly with the news. Lee, Waspy Boy, actually called Beedrill, named after a Pokemon.
Yeah, so is this in scale with the rest of the Robot Toys Legends class figures?
Well, this is going to be MP scale. It's rough.
Not that big, is it?
I did a conversion earlier. I think it was around 6 to 7. So I would have said that's touching MP scale. But the Tarantulas that's been shown is definitely Legend scale, and that's coming up about 4 inches or less.
Yeah, I mean that looks really good. I mean, we both had the Scorponok arrive recently, and although I've not posted anything up about it, I really like it, and it is definitely worthy of standing next to the Takara Masterpiece Beast Wars figures. So if this is similar quality, then yeah, I'm absolutely stoked. I can't wait for it. Good,
because you've also got one that you might like all the more. But this is one that's shown as a definite Legend scale.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's some color choices that I'm a little iffy on. So
yeah, I agree with the arms.
Yeah, his eyes should be yellow. The inner thighs are the wrong color. So I might have to get some paints out and do a little bit of jiggery pokery if they haven't changed it before they go into production.
You listen, Robot Toys, Lee's not happy.
No, I am happy. I'm just being very pedantic and nitpicky about it.
Well, you are the biggest Tarantulas fan that any of us know.
Yes.
You are the target audience.
Exactly. But they've got alternate heads, which is good. He looks very poseable. His hands are been molded the right way around, because the original Beast Wars toys didn't do that. I'm really excited. I've already got my pre-order in.
Good stuff. That is all there was for news. As I say, I didn't want to lay it on too thick because you would have covered it mostly last night, Jamie. Any other thoughts, Jamie? It's Beast Wars and third party related, so right up your street.
Yeah, I like how it's small. It's nice and tiny, nice and petite, so you can scare people with it. That's cool.
You can leave it just on the landing for Maylin to find it and wait for the inevitable scream. Yeah, that's all we have for the news. It was a bit of a quiet week for news just generally. I don't know how you found it on the stream last night, Jamie, but it did seem a bit quiet.
I think we were looking at the Cyberverse quite a bit and wondering about the groin area choice of those toys.
Second time groin has been mentioned tonight on this stream, and it's only been going for 10 minutes.
I blame myself.
I would. I blame you too. Well, of course, you would have been talking around the Megatron under the Takara repaint, was it? Or was what's going to come under? Remind me, what is that Megatron that's been teased?
It's the Studio series, isn't it?
Oh, it's not under Takara then.
I think it's
Takara. Takara teased their upcoming products, and unusually, they've teased something that Hasbro hasn't got around to revealing yet, which is Studio Series 86 Megatron.
Which is good because there's already people with it in hand who are taking really weird photos of tiny parts.
Oh, I thought that was class, though. I thought the photos were brilliant. I love the Inspector Gadget homage, the Dr. Claw thing. That person is amazing. It's just brilliant.
Oh. Well, I mean, it's a contentious, but we still don't know, do we, officially, if it's going to be a tank or a gun?
It's going to be a tank.
I know it's probably going to be a tank.
There's absolutely no problem with a tank. If it turns into a gun, it's going to turn into a massive robot-sized gun that no one's going to be able to do anything with. And if you want to play around and go pew-pew with Megatron at your figures, there's plenty of other toys you could buy.
Thinking outside the box, what if it's a hairdryer?
Fine. It'll be an upside-down hairdryer.
I mean, it'd be the most deadliest hairdryer.
It's a hairdryer shaped like a gun, but it's a hairdryer nevertheless. And then they went with that. I think that would work. Piece through straightening, through curling. Yeah. After all, fashion is deadly. Blow me dry. I think it would work. If I was head of marketing, that's what I would have went with. A hairdryer.
Well, of course. Well, to that point, we'll go back to a simpler time when you could have guns, and why not? But because guns are great. But anyway, to that point, the comics, this is what I want to start talking about tonight, because I believe some of us are more comic-minded than others. And I thought it would be a good time to go down a comic memory lane with the first discussion point. What is your favorite Transformers comic memory? Of all the comics you've ever read, is there any story? I probably should have given you this ahead of time, but I like to put you on the spot. There's no quiz this week, by the way, so this might as well be your quiz. So, what have you read? What panel page have you opened and go, wow, that's pinnacle?
For me, it comes straight to mind is when Impactor beats the Triple Changers, which turn out to be Autobots as you read the story. And the artwork, I think it was Jeff Senior's artwork, wasn't it, for that issue? I'm not sure. We'd have to double check because sometimes I have different comic cover artists compared to the comic artist inside. And sometimes I'm an idiot. I used to look in the front cover and look at the artist and not realise that wasn't for the comic cover as well. And I used to presume a lot of, when I was younger, that the comic artist was also the guy who did the cover. So I made lots of mistakes at LA conventions. But it was when they met the Triple Changers, and you thought, these guys look evil, and they're beating the hell out of Impactor, and they're smiling and enjoying themselves. It's almost like Megatron on crack, and he gets battered, and as they walk away, and Impactor's thinking to himself, why am I not dead? Why are they not coming off to kill me? And he sees that little message cube thing coming from what's his name? Is that Zaxxon? Zaxxon, is it?
Zarin.
Yeah. I started thinking that, but it's for something. I was just getting one tangled there. But and he gets a sort of message for them and saying these are the guys that are going to replace Ultra Magnus for Operation Volcano. And is it Operation Volcano? But I made that up as well. But I just love that whole story, you know, and the introduction of those sort of 3 triple changers. And that was before I'd seen Transformers the movie, that issue, so I didn't really recognize them, you know, as Springer or, you know, Sandstorm and Broadside. So yes, that issue.
Is that what you meant,
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
I just did a quick Google.
Yeah.
Oh,
and wonderful artwork. Artwork was ahead of its time. I mean, these artists were that artwork was what started to take off really, in I think in the 90s comics later. You know, it really was ahead of its time, the artwork there. Absolutely brilliant. And the sort of the shiny reflections coming off metal, which you saw in Target 2000 and Target 2006 or something.
Yeah.
You know, that type of similar artwork. Oh, just brilliant.
No,
I've got other ones as well, but I'll let the other people speak. Because
we can come back around. It's not easy to pick one, but yeah, that's fine. Lee, do you want to go next?
One of my, I mean, all the stories were great. You could pick any one, and you could go on and on forever about it. But I remember, because the comic used to be released every Saturday, and then every 2 weeks, and depending on how popular it was at the time. And I remember when the Headmasters came out. And
is this in Marvel days?
Yes. And this was the first time that I'd gotten up early to watch the cartoons on a Saturday morning, like you do when you're a kid. And during the advertisement break, there was a television advert for issue 130, which was the first issue that introduced the Headmasters, where you've got the cover where they're all taking off the head and they say, "We're the Headmasters." And I remember it because it would have been about 7. And it was the first time where I remember from start to finish the product saturation of this new line that was part of G1. So it felt new, it felt exciting. These are all brand new characters. The story in the comic took you away from everybody else. There was no Optimus, there was no Megatron, there was nobody that you recognized. All the characters in the story were brand new and were having this whole new tale told without any of the familiar characters. And it's not something that happens anymore. Particularly now, every new version of Transformers has Optimus Prime, it has Megatron, and it just felt really exciting, especially when you actually got hold of the toys and they weren't like anything that you'd had previously. They were bigger, they were chunkier, they had the gimmicks, the Headmasters and Target Masters. I just remember being really excited about it because I was too young when Transformers first hit off. Although I was into Transformers, I was getting Transformers toys. I was too young in '84 and still a bit too young in '86 to understand how saturated everything was with Transformers and how massive they were. This was the first bit of G1 that I remember being excited about it from start to finish.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's a strong choice, isn't it? Go on, Jamie.
Yeah, I mean, do you know what the funny thing was? It's like, because those comics were like your Bible. I mean, I remember when you read this story, you know, you're just taken aback, and then you watched the Rebirth, which I think came out like 2 months later, and then you went back to the comic and you went, they're the wrong color. The Nebulons are the wrong color. What you you start to get confused between. And I remember, because a cartoon to me, the Rebirth Part 1, 2, and 3 was like, to me, was my Transformers the movie. I'd probably saw the Rebirth first, really complete thing, Transformers the movie. You know, and it was to me the best piece of animation ever, because you got all these new characters. And you got Optimus Prime, who came back because he was meant to be dead in Transformers the movie, but she'd already been covered in the comics, so the comics had kind of already spoiled it for you by the time you'd seen Transformers the movie. So you're thinking, what's he doing back? And you didn't understand, because, you know, the return of Optimus Prime hadn't been released yet. You know, it was kind of weird the way you were seeing these things out of order in the UK. But yeah, that issue was just amazing. You know, the Autobots leaving the war behind the Cybertron, Fortress Maximus.
It felt like the first proper reboot of the franchise, because it left everything else behind and it did its own thing. Eventually, it would all come back to Earth and you would mingle all the characters and everything. But if you were there at the beginning and you were experiencing it as it happened, amazing.
But see, But because we obviously saw it all the way to its conclusion, and Fortress Maximus had the most non-eventful, climatic self-sacrifice, which proved to be futile in the end. And I often felt that didn't really do the character justice, even though Optimus Prime probably quoted them, but G2 or whatever, is one of the most noble heroic Autobots. But it felt kind of sad to their story, but it never really got a finish or a finale. It's because they were, like, to me, the next step up in sort of Transformers evolution.
Yeah, I agree massively with what you're saying. Like, this was probably one of the first times where we got something different, where we got, as you say, away from Optimus and Megatron, the same old formula. And I've kind of said this recently on our video, like, when it came to the Headmasters and Target Masters, we don't see them in anything since. We don't see them introduced in, we're talking Cyberworld, the new show that's coming up, or Earthspark or anything. You don't get these kind of
we got Scorponok coming. I think the problem is because these characters are so intrinsically linked to their gimmick. Whenever they and they don't have the gimmick, that's what people notice.
It's true, because I did notice that when they turned up in IDW, and Chrome Dome was not a headmaster per se, but he was there anyway. But yeah, you're right. They were introduced with the gimmick, and so when they're not using the gimmick, it's very noticeable.
It doesn't seem the same character, does it? It's like when IDW had its last relaunch of Transformers, and I think was it Brainstorm was murdered at the very start. I was thinking, what's he doing so early, getting introduced into the comic? He's got to go to Nebulous first and become a headmaster. What have you done? I was so annoyed. You sound
angry now.
I know, I still am, because that's
interesting, though, Jamie, because you say that, but then in order for them to get their Nebulans, they had to do an entire thing where it was just that. That was the main focus of the story. That was the main focus of the tour line. It's not something you can do as like an aside. Oh, this is happening over here. Let's get back to the main story. It has to be the whole thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, and I would have been all for that full commitment. In fact, I would have loved a relaunch where I was telling the story of, an Exodus. Because it was minor Exodus, they often think about Junkion being one of the first sort of brutal types of Exodus to leave Cybertron. And I think it would have been cool to see a headmaster Exodus and go really into the detail, because they had a sort of myriad of different headmaster characters which we never fully got to explore. But every time you saw them in Marvel UK comics, they set the pages alight. They were amazing.
And headmasters are an interesting case in point. I mean, Marvel UK did look at this, where you've got how are the bot and the Nebulan actually get on with each other, because they're sharing minds, which is an incredibly intimate relationship, yet it's something that's been forced on them in an extreme situation. And a lot of the tech specs show that most of the Nebulans were the complete opposite of the person they were partnered with. So the idea was there that they should be at odds with each other, that there was conflict built into who they were, which wasn't ever really investigated that much.
In modern psychology, people with opposite personalities tend to work better. People who have had a shared lived experience tend to be more bitter towards the person with the same shared lived experience, which is kind of weird and strange. So when someone goes for like an interview and job-wise saying, I've got the lived experience, I'll be a great counselor, psychology has shown that they're actually the worst type of people. They don't have the empathy with someone who's from an intrinsic opposite life. Trying to understand will increase the empathy, and I love the idea that there were different personalities and that type, and that's the sort of true sort of, they had a greater approach to dealing with problems, didn't they? Because they had, they weren't stuck in the same thought patterns, because they were so different from each other. They were both outside the box because they were never in the same box to begin with.
And also I think that the Nebulans, particularly the Decepticon Nebulans, would have found themselves suddenly living all these experiences and all these memories that these beings had built up over millions of years of constant murder and atrocity. That was never looked at. That was, how's that going to affect a person? That could drive anyone mad. Particularly as these creatures have lived so long. That's beyond any biological creature's experience.
And I always wanted to know, with Scorponok, where did Scorponok start and end, and where did Lord Zarek begin and start? You know, which was did Lord Zarek turn Scorponok more noble and good? Did he start to have an influence? Because Lord Zarek was always angry, and Lord Zarek, but he was never evil. You know, he was an architect was road to hell was paved with good intentions, and I just wondered, did he slowly change Scorponok? You know, because Scorponok had a good ending to his story. You know, I wept a tear when he died.
Until Regeneration 1 ruined it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where you have all of these stories that we just never fully had conclusion to, or they were introduced in, well, I don't want to say a rush, but it was kind of just put on his plate, as you say, issue 130 and a rebirth. We just kind of got very quickly, you're going to work together, and it wasn't kind of the backstory as to the what ifs, the whys, you know, and how long it's going to last beyond that. But yeah, points you made, good ones. Right. Phil, you've waited a while. Do you want to get your shots in?
Honestly, just been enjoying listening to that, because the comics, for me, it's something that's always on my to-do list. I've read a few of them. I've not read the amount that I want to. When I think about the older comics, the sort of original run, I think back to getting the annuals when I was a kid and the comic strip tasters that were in there, and loving reading them when I was little and collecting those annuals. On the more modern side, the thing which always sticks in my head is the city assault from the start of All Hail Megatron is just one of the most beautifully drawn things I've ever seen in Transformers media. But for me, like I said, it's always been on the to-do list, and I bought a Humble bundle ages ago which had the whole IDW running, so I've got them ready to go. I just need to find time to do it.
You cheapskate.
Yeah, I think I really like how the comics have diversified the Transformers fandom, how it's brought so many new people in who might not have got into it through toys or TV shows, have got into it through the comics, and I think that's a really positive thing. But for me, I'm not the expert on that, and it's been really good to hear some experts having a discussion about it, because it is very interesting.
Have any of you gone in for the compendium?
No.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because I was speaking to some guys about that, and then I put in a link and I went, what option would you go for? And everyone was like, oh no, I'm not getting that. I've got all the originals as well. And I went, oh, but I fancy the one where it combines the UK and the US stories together. And I wanted to get the Grimlock version. And then Woff was going, Woff from Primetime Toys, she went, actually, I quite like the Decepticon version of that. And then so suddenly we both talked ourselves into both backing it. And the next thing you know, we are. You know, so yes, to answer your question, Lee, yes, I have. I've backed it.
Amazing how much money that took in pledges. The amount, how quick the pledge money went up for them was unbelievable.
Oh, I pledged straight away, because although I've got most of them from when I was a kid and I've been buying them again, so I've got copies which aren't as read through, because you did reread those things an awful lot as a child. I just wanted them all in one place in order that I could look at, just pick up and start reading without having to bat through loads of boxes and be very careful, because I don't want to rip a page.
Oh, I keep doing that as well, because I've been rereading the old ones, and every time I do, I take some photos just quickly with my mobile phone, nothing fancy, and stick up on Instagram, and then just do a summary quickly, or get off my tea with Wiki and help just copy and paste and stuff. And I've been enjoying it, just doing that like once a week. You know, just wonderful to go through again and see the original artwork and see the differences between the American and the UK versions.
If you want original artwork, Jamie, come round to my house, because I've got some actual original artwork hanging on my wall.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Promises.
Yeah.
So
see my Ekins.
Going back to Phil's point, the All Hail Megatron is one of my favorites. It's kind of what got me into regularly reading comics again from that point on, because it was a case of I could take what I could get when it came to comics. I didn't, being ever so slightly younger than some, I had to get a lot of G2 comics. I didn't get a lot of G1 stuff. But it was a case of find a comic, buy it, because it's Transformers. So I was nowhere near in ascending order or story order. I was grabbing whatever. So when I came across All Hail Megatron, I thought, oh, this is interesting. And I got it in the volume version. So I prefer to read them that way. And that ties into a question later. But I was just like, that first assault on Earth when the Decepticons turn up, and it's just bloody hopeless for Earth and the Autobots. And they do such a good job in getting that story across. Of like, this is what the cartoon, as good as much as I love the cartoon, you could always scare off the Decepticons, and evil would always run away, and the heroes would always win. This is what would happen if Megatron turned up tomorrow.
Nails the scale of the assault, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was one of the lines where it's just like, what happened to the ships or whatever, and it was like, if I don't hear that message again, it will be too soon. It was just Devastator just plunging into the ocean. It's just like, you couldn't hope to stand a chance. You just couldn't. And it really conveyed it.
I found that really interesting because I remember when All Hail Megatron came out, those of us who'd been reading IDW up to that point thought that it was a dumbing down of IDW, that it'd gone back to being what Dreamwave had been trying to do, which was just do the cartoon. But its whole point of it was to bring people into IDW and get them reading. And the two of you saying, oh, yeah, I remember it's really great, that's what got me into the comics, proves that we were wrong, that it did what it wanted to do.
It's different starting points, isn't it? Because I remember the sort of the earlier IDW stuff, and I don't know why. It was availability or just right place, right time. But All Hail Megatron was what it was intended to be, which was a soft reboot, and it got kind of people interested again. They wanted to tell probably a different theme story, a different flow, and a different pace. But that first introduction was like, this is how it would be, you know, if the Decepticons turned up and Prime's torn open. But I'll quickly do mine. I've actually got two. It's my stream, and I'll cry if I want to. I have got. I'll start with this one. It's just an image. If I'll get it on screen, that I kind of first remember reading, being more of a cartoon guy than a comic guy. I wanted. Oh God, you think I get used to this system by now? I wanted to kind of put the cartoon into comics and have it make sense that way. I wanted the characters to flow much the same. So when I saw this, I was a little bit like, oh, okay, Megatron's dead. Brutally dead. And it wasn't done by Optimus. And I just kind of felt this was the big like turning point for me, that I kind of felt like I hadn't scratched enough of the surface of comics, and it was this image that was a bit like, even in comparison to the 86 movie, we never saw people getting.
How old were you when you first saw this image?
I could say 8, maybe younger. Maybe younger. I think 8.
That's the important context. Is that's what we were looking at when we were kids. That's what we were reading when we were kids, which isn't happening in any kind of kids media at the minute. So that it does leave a really big impression on you. It
does, and I suppose that is the way. That's a shame, though, isn't it? Because you think Transformers comics, they're not aimed at kids, really. There's not to say you can't read them, like Skybound, for example. They're not aimed at kids. But
I often look at that in an educational standpoint, and I think a lot of comics are aimed, the words they use, the amount of words they use per page, and you do a count, you know, the reading age is quite lower than what they should be aiming at. And I think that's something, it maybe is down to the writers. And I do think I don't think they knew what they were doing at the time, and I think that's what made it so wonderful and so energetic. There was no rules they were working by. And that image is like, I often think of Target 2006, and Jazz is on the torture chair, you know. And
don't worry, Jamie, I've got you covered for that, mate.
And I remember looking at that, and it's funny because last night we were discussing most horrific things, and I didn't really bring that up because to me that's like it's even more horrific the more you read back on it, because as you get older, you empathize with the torture Jazz was going through, and at the time I didn't appreciate it, if that makes sense. And I look now and I think of Jazz, and I'm just thinking about it today. Actually, I was just thinking, I would like to take a photo of that setup. Actually, Jazz get tortured. I mean, it would be horrific, but it'd be a wonderful photo to do if you could,
I mean, Skybound are now releasing a Transformers comic which is aimed at children, which is the worst bot ever.
Yes.
Which has the Decepticon Ballpoint, who has a very high opinion of himself, which bears no resemblance to reality.
Starscream.
Yeah, they just released the preview, and it was quite funny, actually. I did enjoy it. So that's supposed to be getting a regular run. So hopefully that does well.
I'll just quickly say the point I made there, like comics aren't really aimed at children, by the example Lisa's given. I'm happy to admit, and I should have stated this as well, technology's changed. We have phones now. We didn't have phones back then.
Yeah, descriptions.
Yeah, there's all these things that you can attribute it to, but I think, as you rightly say, this is an image that I saw as a kid, and it really sticks with me because it's like got that gravitas. If they had something that was being aimed at kids today like this was at us, then the same thing would happen. Maybe there'd be an image in Skybound if a kid saw it, but generally they're not aimed as such.
I just look at the
he's
media and
screaming in pain. You can see it. He's screaming in pain. That hurts. It looks like it hurts, and it hurts.
But
if
you
had that, it would be done like slapstick. So he'd probably just fall apart.
Don't you think you see that image in today's comics? Though you'll see that in webtoons. You'll see that. I think for me, Transformers was breaking new ground. But you had the way the X-Men would continuously die at times in the Marvel comics, you'd think that's horrific as well.
Oh yeah, there was a lot of X-Men death in the sort of the 90s comics I had.
They're like the red guys from Star Trek, weren't they? At some point they would just die all the time and get resurrected.
It was like mass extinction, wasn't it?
But I just when I look at that image, almost because of the way the yellow shining off his armor plate, I'm almost reminded of the original Transformers annual. Was it the second annual?
Yeah,
I think it was the second annual. But you've got Megatron and the Gladiator arena, and I love that golden color he had. And I think he was about to batter. Was it Sunstreaker?
Yes,
or something very similar to Sunstreaker. With this huge axe. Before the Energon axe, before you saw it, and I just thought, oh, this is awesome.
But this is a very
UK thing, because in the US they had the comic books code because they had a prevalence of horror comics which were grotesque back in the 50s and 60s. But I remember being in primary school, and if it was a rainy day and you couldn't go out to play in the playground, there was a big box of comics that the teacher would bring out and just plonk on there. And it was mostly Beano and Dandy, but there was one issue of 2000 AD where Judge Death went into this old woman's apartment, and she was sat in her armchair watching the television, and his hand just burst through her chest, and he kills her like that. And then he's going around doing it to tons of other people. And we were like 7, and that was freely available for us to read.
I remember that something similar, 2000 AD, and it was big spiders on an alien planet going into an army base, and all the guys were sleeping and just mutilating everyone. And you're like, in primary school, and you're reading this, and you're only about 7, and you're thinking, absolutely terrified.
I shouldn't be reading this.
Yeah.
Well, good. I said I had 2 to choose from, and I'll just finish up my secondary choice if I can get it open. I'll have to stop sharing and reshare when I. Can I just switch pages? I'll stop sharing. It was one of the more modern IDW ones, and oh God's sake, I hate this. I'll get there in the end. Stop sharing, reshare. It's not the image I really wanted, but it was a story that I really enjoyed. It actually leads up to this point. The image, I'll quickly tell you a bit, was for when I'll never forget it. I say I never forget it. I never remember the issue it was in because I've got it in an annual. It was like It was Chaos, or it was around Chaos, but it's when Megatron came back after Chaos, defeating that kind of horde of sweeps, like mindless husks. And I never forget the last panel, and I wish to God I found it because it's one of my favorites. And it's the Starscream looking off because he more or less is starting to polititate his way to take over Cybertron. And he looks into this barren distance on the edge of Iacon or somewhere, and he just says no. And it just says, it all changed when Megatron came back and everything turned to dusk. And he's in this kind of what's left of this stealth bomber form. He's battered, he's bruised, he's carrying the head of a decapitated sweep. And he's just... that introduction of Starscream thinking he's had everything finally, Megatron's out of the way, and against insurmountable odds, he returns. That aside, this is my favorite. This entire passage, which I think I've said this before when I've been on your show, Jamie. I think McFeely's even done a kind of a script reading of this panel, the back and forth between Optimus and Megatron, when he's kind of willingly given himself up as prisoner. Some of the best flowing writing of a comic I've ever read. It's just tip top of... There's even one passage where Megatron says to Prime, "Do you hate me? Or you hate me, don't you?" And Optimus is like, "No, yes, I don't know." And he doesn't know if he even hates the person he's been fighting against for millennia. And even Megatron says to him, "I don't hate you, Prime, but I hate what you stand for. But I don't hate you as a person." And is it this almost like coziness, and Hot Rod calls him out on it. I love the escalation to it. It's one of the best series of pages I've read. But anyway, that was my choice.
And outstanding artwork to support it.
Oh, excellent. It really is good. Okay, that's enough sharing a screen for a while. Moving on then. It's going to be a bit more comic related. Sorry, Phil. It's going to be going on then. But talking about Skybound, and actually, Lee, you might be the only one to answer it. Thoughts on the Skybound series, the Energon universe, as it's called, as a whole? How do you think it's been going so far?
Well, if you're going to say as a whole, we need to specify what that means. So that means...
Okay, well, I won't...
Series,
yeah, I won't include series, this... Well, yeah.
Void Rivals. I think that's all at the minute. You've had like Scarlet and Cobra Commander and Destro, but that all comes under the G.I. Joe umbrella. And the reason I say you need to think of that is because it is one interlocking universe. Threads that are happening in G.I. Joe are going to come back into Transformers. Mm-hmm. Void Rivals is very much building up to something big, Transformers wise, even though the majority of the characters aren't Transformers, they're completely original. If you were to just take the Transformers book, I'm enjoying it. It's a semi-original take on the story. It is very much going back to that More Than Meets the Eye original Marvel comic. They're stranded on Earth, but it also mixes in that all hell Megatron, because they are overt. They are destroying cities and people can see it, and the military knows what's going on. But it does do a good job of actually having character beats, having character moments. I think where it probably struggles is that most of that is based around Optimus. So it's a story about Optimus, and everyone else is just sort of coming in as and when they're needed, even though they have interesting stories of their own. I've heard people say they think it's running out of steam. So the initial hype that we had at the beginning is just sort of running out as things become a little bit predictable. But I'm sticking with it. I mean, I lived through Marvel, I lived through Dreamwave, I lived through both IDWs. I'm sure this is going to work out fine.
That's a fair point. Jamie, have you touched Skybound?
I've touched Skybound in the sense I've touched the front covers of the comics. I've got them all, but I've not read them. But I've been reading the Void Rivals. I've read up to like issue 4, and I started to collect them because at first I wasn't. And so now, but I was actually really enjoying that, you know, especially with the sort of two aliens working together, and the sort of the fact is, I think they look similar. Oh God, it's been a while since I read it because I've been reading Thundercats recently. But you know, they're actually the same. Is it this? Like the same people, and I just loved that. I mean, it's been done in sci-fi so many times. It's like an old story, you know. So, but I just thought it was really well done. I love the artwork as well. It pushes the story. It's made me excited for, you know, Transformers, which I have read. I've read the sort of like first issue. I liked it. I liked its action packed compared to the last run of IDW, which was like, oh, so slow.
You stuck with that. To be fair, yeah. I dropped off, but you stuck with it to the end, didn't you?
Yeah, I mean, at the end, they started to really speed it up, and people were dying left, right, and center, and they were introducing characters, and it was kind of fun to spot, you know, oh, that's that character. There's a Micro Master who's now big, but yes, it was just it was quite painful.
IDW 2 was written as a novel rather than as a comic. That's why it felt slow.
I've read plenty of novels in my young youth, and novels can be fast paced as well, and then they can sort of put around and give you breathing space and I feel like that he was world building, but it was world building when I think you should bang it in fast, get the people in, and then tell wonderful backstories which help to build up the world instead of being slow all the way. Because even Lord of the Rings is a tough book to read because it's a lot of slow pace in that. But then there's a lot of ups and downs, there's hills, isn't there? You know, parts which are really quite cool, and suddenly you're imagining that character in different, you know, sets, and I think with IDW they just didn't do that. It was just all
when they went from IDW 1 into IDW 2, it was such a change of pace. It was a complete change, and it almost felt like a different publisher entirely. It felt, and I was so into IDW from The Lost Light, from all of that with Unicron at the end. And okay, it was ending fine. And then when it just kind of restarted, I just felt very, I don't know, it lacks soul for me. And everything that I've been investing in with the characters and their growth and development all felt for now. And I felt that was just a real shame of it.
It did feel like Hasbro had issued a directive that the characters in the comic had to be the toys that were on the shelf.
Yeah, because that was. I felt like that. I felt like the artwork was under. Because I felt like the artists were under, you know, lock and key when they had to do the artwork based really on the toy. It was almost like you were seeing the toy in those pages, you know, rather than being an interpretation of a toy. It was a toy, you know.
Remember Wreckers? We saw a lot of the toys in that comic before we saw the toys in plastic.
Yeah. And at that time of IDW, that was the way it was more or less going, with the exception of Combiner Wars. But it was a case of get them into comics, and then toys would follow, be it official or third party. But yeah, I'll quickly go in here to Skybound. My thoughts on Skybound as a whole, I haven't been reading the expanded universe, if you like, because I'm not G.I. Joe, and I hear Void Rivals is good. Everyone's been telling me I should really give it a go. But the kind of the Transformers side of it, just purely the Transformers comic, started quite well. I like the fact it is kind of, you know, familiar G1, crash into the mountain, here we go, being revived one at a time. And then there's a left turn. And okay, we're almost doing a parallel universe here. I like that. I like the fact it just gives you a curveball. You know Starscream's going to be how Starscream's going to be and things like that. But then that worked for a long time. The last few issues, maybe 2 to 3 issues, have felt much slower, whereas it was around issues 6, 7, 8, and 9. Could not wait for the next one. It was banger after banger. Whereas now it's just like, okay, we're done. And the steam is wearing off, and it's a shame because it's a 24-issue story. Not entirely, you know, their ownership of the license, but just the story is going to 24 issues, and we're up to 20 now, is it? Lee, 20 out?
I don't doubt that it will continue. I think the current creative team are stopping at 24, and then someone else is probably going to come in and carry on the story.
Yeah, but it will still be under Skybound in one form or another. No, I agree with that. And it feels like it's going out with a little bit of a whimper, and it's a shame because I quite like what it was doing. And I didn't think I would because I was such a fan of IDW. I was so invested in that to the point that I'll just happily go back and reread that. Why do I want to look at anything else? And IDW 2 was no interest to me. And so I was very skeptical when Skybound started, then very pleased, and now it's just waiting a tad, just a little bit.
I mean,
but I'm happy to
Marvel
be proved wrong.
UK was kind of like that. It's like really action-packed stories, and then sometimes it was dull, very human heavy, and I was like, I'm not interested. I don't care. Oh, I don't care. He's a mechanic. I don't care. I just want to see robots fighting robots, and three lasses together. Oh, a hairdryer. Maybe it'd be Megatron, but no, they didn't do that. It would have been funny. But no, do
you want me to buy you a hairdryer? Is that what you're getting at?
In Megatron hairdryer. If you could be a stealth bomber, why not a hairdryer? I mean, they're meant to be Decepticons. I mean, the Soundwave transformed into a freaking cassette.
We've seen the live action movies. They can turn into whatever they like. They can turn into mobile phones and then fire rockets, because that's not fun.
A Switch.
Turn into a Nintendo Switch for £500. Switch 2.
We said validate the price, wouldn't it, Nintendo?
Okay. Don't get Nintendo coming after me, right? I don't need that level of hate.
Switch 2 Nintendo. Don't blame me for what they're up to.
I've still got one on order though.
You two are fools, mad fools.
I got it from work.
All right, I'll let you off.
I pre-ordered it as well next week. right in time for Milan's birthday. Milan's birthday's on Wednesday, and I think the Nintendo Switch is 2 days later.
Oh, good Lord, she must love you.
I know.
Phil, any interest in Skybound, mate? I don't suppose not, but I'll ask.
Yeah, not really. I've got Void Rivals, the first collection. I haven't read it yet. My brother got us it for Christmas, so it's on the shelf to read, and I think it's just because I forgot to read it, and that's so I am intending to. But yeah, I didn't start when it came out because I just wasn't reading the comics, so it's kind of passed us by a bit. I've seen all the hype online about it, but I just feel it's passed us by, and I like some of the artwork I've seen from it. And I've read a couple of similar things to what you were saying about the curveballs that have came into it. But yeah, I'll definitely get around to reading Void Rivals because I've heard that's really good. But I'm not 100% sure I'll get around to reading the main Transformers story for a little while.
I don't mind the criticism. I always, the thing that always annoys me when people criticize writing or the reason something is written in a way, they go, that's how it's written. Because I've been told, and I never like that as an answer, because that's just you're not answering anything. You're just doing a get out of fee class, aren't you? I think there's so much. I always think when you look at something which has been written, is not why it's been written like that, but how it's been written. How's it got from A to C to B back to D to E back to A? I always think you've got to look at the journey, rather than say, it's just been written like that.
Whilst I'm to the point, I just want to pick up on there, and I will stop talking about comics in a minute, Phil. Don't you worry, mate. But when on my podcast that we did, a Beast Wars podcast, we had Josh Bircham, of course, IDW artist colorist, who joined us and gave quite a good insight into sort of how some things are put together, and it's really interesting when you hear it from an artist. I'm sure you've had it from Jack Lawrence as well, but it's you can find out that you are quite shackled, and Lee mentioned it for IDW too. It's make it about the toys, and it's always about the toys. We're not going to kid ourselves, but it's when it's a case of a writer wants to write something or a certain character for someone and draw them a certain way, that's when you can find out they can't, because it doesn't fit the broader story as a whole. Or if they do, it's very much a one shot and it's a character that is interjected. Oh, that's good. Oh, they got. And it's never a long-term play, because that's not the essence of the story. A Hasbro or whoever, and it won't fully put this on Hasbro's doorstep, but they can say, your story has to be tell Headmasters because we want to sell Headmasters toys. Oh, that's good, but I want to talk about Unicron. Yeah, well, talk about him for 5 minutes in a panel, and then he's got to go. And that's when the dialogue and the artwork is hurt, because there's a bigger agenda at play as such, sell toys. And so having Josh talking about that was quite interesting and not surprising yet disappointing at the same time, because the pen is being held, sadly, being shackled.
I often think there's two types of shackles, isn't there? when it comes to like the medium of comics is the shackles where from the toy companies who are trying to sell a product. And sometimes those shackles are quite loose because they don't know what they're doing. So they're just happy to say, have fun, have a blast. And then sometimes they've got more control, especially the older they get, because they probably want to do that industry and think they have wonderful creative input. Maybe the shackles are really tight. But then I also think there's the shackles of the overseers who work for the comics, who want to keep the continuity and keep characters to have similar personalities. So the Optimus Prime you read from issue 1 is the same Optimus Prime you're reading by issue 35. And if there's been a change in personality, there's an explanation for that change in personality, not just because it's a new writer. And I often think those type of shackles are really good and not appreciated. And you know, and I think sometimes, you know, I think the writer's self-inserting has been overused quite a lot. But I think as a writer, it must be so hard not to self-insert naturally as you write, because you can only write from your own experience or borrowed experience from someone else. So I think good writers, and even writers that sometimes they don't hit it all the time, but more often than not, you've read enough of their works where they do. You really do appreciate them even more, even the times when they've not hit it. And I think that's something I loved about the comics, because we got to see such, especially Marvel UK, because I'm obviously, I've been reading IDW Humble stuff, and sometimes it just goes over my head. And then I have to reread it again, because when it came to Marvel UK, it really was like your Bible. You waited 2 weeks for that comic to come in, and you read it, you traced it, you drew it, and you read it again. And then the annuals would reinforce it. Then you had the collected comics that reinforced other stories again. So
good times, eh? I'll quickly only slightly go away from comics, and I'm going to have to go back, but I want to get Phil more onto discussions. I don't want to freeze him out. He didn't come and give up his evening just to go and sit there quietly. So is there anything, and this isn't a preset question, so I've got no banner to it, is there anything you have seen in comic or otherwise that has led to a purchase of a toy? Is it go on? I think I even. Well, what one comes to your mind that you've seen and gone, I now need a particular toy of that? Because you've got a wall of them behind you. So let's deep into your knowledge.
I mean, I've had a couple of impactors. I had the MMC impactor just from seeing the art and thinking it was a cool design. I did have the War for Cybertron impactor as well. I just got this guy last week, which is funny because your panel you picked. As I just got.
Oh yeah, I saw your photo of that.
Yeah, I picked him up on the Transformers UK sales group this week, and I've always loved that design. Again, from seeing comic artwork. One of my favourite mainline releases of the last few years was Tarn. Which is
I can't believe I haven't got that.
The Thrilling 30 Springer and Sandstorm. Okay, so this is all stuff which is coming from a comic inspired place, where I've seen the designs and I've seen pages being posted, and it's instantly made me want to do it. I've recreated the Death's Head Rodimus Prime cover using the Death's Head figure. Again, just from seeing it and thinking that is such a cool image, I have to recreate that myself. So obviously, I think me and my wife went halves on Death's Head because half the Marvel stuff behind me is hers. She's a big Marvel comics fan. Should have had her on to talk about comics.
How does that work then? Do you have to chop a figure in half and you have it in half a display cabinet each?
No, like the Marvel stuff. If it's something we both want, we'll just pay half the money each.
But then you get to keep it in your covers, or does she get to keep it in hers?
Well, it's our house.
Okay.
You know, it's
the collection as a whole.
The collection, the Transformers is all mine. But I mean, I've got like loads of Japanese import Marvel stuff, which is half hers. But yeah, there's been tons of stuff I've seen in the comics which I thought I have to get. So like Death's Head, Tarn, where I've wanted to recreate stuff which I've seen in people passionate about the comics who are posting artwork and artwork, and I'm then wanting to recreate that, even though I'm not coming from a standpoint of being knowledgeable about the comics themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So it's funny how you get influenced by stuff that you see, despite it not necessarily being on your radar. And a lot of the best sort of modern Transformers designs, like Tarn and the Thrilling 30 Springer, have came from comic book pages. So I do appreciate that.
No, that's fair. You've got some really strong choice there. Hard. I mean, I thought you'd say as well the MMC Optus Pexus, because I've seen you take photographs of that many a time.
Yeah, you know what? I think I've spoke about that figure so much that it just didn't enter my head that time. But, yeah.
I've got that figure, but I keep looking at your photos and I go, oh, not today, Jamie. Next week, maybe. I'll take a photo.
I was at TF Nation the first time I went. When I went down on my own, there was a guy I was sat at a table with, and he had was it the Stormbringer version, the one with the orange one my brother's got. And he had that, and he managed to pose it in the Matrix bullet dodge pose, and it was freestanding. So as soon as I got home, I took that photo with the MMC Eris Armadon figure, where she was shooting and Pexus was back in the bullet time pose. And it's just one of the most incredible figures to pose. I have no idea how it can stand like that without support.
No, it's black magic territory. It has no logical right to do that. I mean,
it was robots photos sold me on that. So he had it posed in a pose which looked like it was scared of a mouse, like jumping out the way, and it was like
I remember that one.
Yeah. And I thought I have to have that figure, even though, again, I wasn't familiar with those comics. The design was so amazing that I had to have that in my collection.
Yeah, absolutely. Right, Lee, anything for you? What stands in your mind that you've looked at? I mean, you buy half the world as it is on any given Tuesday anyway, but
if it's official, if it's an official product, I'm going to buy it anyway. So it would be third-party stuff. So you've said
what's caught you a little bit off guard? What if you just kind of you read or you watched and you go, I wasn't going to, but now I'm convinced?
I never feel like I'm never going to.
No, I think I'm asking the wrong person this question because you're going to regardless, aren't you?
Yeah. No, the MMC stuff. I wasn't really into third-party figures when they started releasing IDW characters. Was it Impactor? Was one of the first ones they did.
Yeah,
Spartan,
You've said Optus Pexus. I've got 4 of that figure in various color schemes.
I've got 2 at least.
And then I've got one up here. The
do you have the Shattered Glass one, Lee?
Yes, Shattered Glass, Nemesis Prime, the original release, and the Stormbringer version. But then things like this, the Nova Prime, Nemesis Prime.
That's lovely, isn't it?
It's a chunk, isn't it?
All this sort of stuff. I had no interest in collecting third-party, they're technically masterpiece style figures, but they were the only people that were doing those characters. So that's what got me into it, and it's just been a rolling rock down a hill ever since, gathering speed and various other bits of debris.
It shows no sign of stopping.
No.
Yeah, wrong person to ask that question because you're just going to buy it anyway. But yeah, no, that's a fair answer that you gave. No, I'm pleased with that.
Has there been anything you've seen which has made you not buy something?
Oh,
no.
In a word, I'm trying to think the answer to my own question. What have I seen? Well, I'll tell you what. Bloody, it's Phil. Because I didn't need to get that War Within style Optus Pexus, a slight remolding with the big axe until you started putting some photos up. How dare you?
I borrowed that one off my brother. I don't even have that.
I know, yeah, you both got some answering to do. I've told you both that before. 6-0 was one as well. He did some photos of Takara's Nemesis Lyo Convoy, the masterpiece. Yes, and I was just like, I don't need that. And then I saw the photos and like, I need that. That looks amazing. And so, yeah, very pleased with that. That's probably one that sticks in my mind because I at that time I wasn't that keen into that side of Beast Wars, but I've delved back in with help of a rather large Triptychon given to me by someone. He knows.
I mean, that Optus Pexus, that Stormbringer one, that's a figure that I bought specifically to take specific photos of, which I still haven't got around to doing yet because I've got IDW Thunderwing, the massive armored battlesuit Thunderwing, and I've got like half a dozen of those Guardian drones that were repaints of Brunt, and I just wanted to recreate eventually one day where Optimus has got all his guns out and he's just firing on Thunderwing with the record and all the Guardian robots around him. So that's the only reason I bought that, because I was happy with the proper coloured one. But no, I went and got that one just specifically for that one photo I want to take.
They get you back in.
I love this colour scheme on them. The Scourge colour scheme. It's the tiny little bits of pink and just see on the guns and that. It's just, it's a stunner.
It's a tremendous model. It's going to keep them afloat for many a year. Jamie, what about you, chap? Anything, not necessarily third party, or I'll open up to official, but anything that you've just gone, I wasn't going to, but I've seen this and go, now I want to buy that.
I would say when I looked at some of the Mastermind creation figures, I saw some of the sort of IDW comics and the sort of, was it DGD Squad? And I just thought, I want all of them, and I got them all, got all the Mastermind creation figures. And I'm thinking of selling them on now. Actually, I've had them for about
don't go too far with that, because I've got 2 of them and I need to get the remaining 3, so I may end up taking them off you.
You know, so I'm not sure, because I also got them because not only were they wonderful, interesting characters, and there was a time in Twitter field and social media where you couldn't have a day where someone wasn't posting one of those characters. And I just thought, I want to mimic that, because what you see is what you want to mimic. And because they were bigger and so clean and the plastic was so polished, but it was so much easier for your mobile phone to grab the detail from. And I took pictures of Mastermind Creations Impactor, and he's a wonderful figure because and even Thunderclash, you know, they just made it so much easier.
Oh, that Thunderclash is something special. The yellow and the green and that doing a lot of the work, dancing for the camera.
MMC is such a good company anyway.
I've said that
for good company.
I've said that for a while. They do so many more hits.
I've just got to go for 5 minutes, but I'll be right back. 5 minutes.
No, fair enough. Well, it's a good time to talk on about
I do apologize.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We'll see you in 5. But yeah, MMC they literally do so many more hits and misses. It's a company that I've never been unsatisfied with something, if you know what I mean. Like,
when Lee was saying about transformations on third-party figures before, especially the movie ones, with MMC, the transformations don't tend to be emotionally scarring. Like they tend to make a lot of sense.
But their Stray, the most recent Stray that they released, the 80s one, that isn't fun.
I haven't handled that one.
No.
It has a clear plastic shell, and everything has to be aligned just so that it fits back into vehicle mode.
It does look a bit X Transbots, that one, in terms of transformation, trying to get everything into a little rectangle that you have to apply a bit of force in areas that you wouldn't necessarily like.
Don't swear at me while I'm on your show.
Look, now we need to have a word around your phobia of X Transbots. They're getting better.
It's not a phobia, it's a hate.
It was a disease. We decided you had XTVitis. It's not. They're getting better. You just give Green a chance, particularly Big Low. That stupid name. Give that a go. That's fabulous. Oh, stop it.
It is. But, it's the figure, mate. But because it doesn't feel like X Transbots. That's why.
It's the best figure X Transbots have done.
You know what? That is probably the most complimentary thing you could say about any X Transbots toy. It doesn't feel like
get over yourself, would you? He's saying it now just to wind me up. Look, don't get me wrong. I've been burned with X Transbots along with everybody else. Okay, we'll go off this now. We'll go on to pure third party chat. But I've been burned.
You said it. You red flag in front of me.
No. I'm the bull. You're the one who raised the red flag. But X Transbots, look, I've been burned. I've had things that I just want to throw against the wall, and I've done that Commander Stack transformation once and never again. But they are getting better. The Constructicons are worth looking at, and Commander Stack. Look, I'm selling the Fans Toys Magnus and keeping Commander Stack. What does that tell you? So
I mean, I've probably told you this, but I'll repeat it. When Commander Stack was released, and somebody at TFN bought it, on the Sunday they brought it down to the bar, and we were in the bar for a couple of hours. And they hadn't finished transforming it by the time I went to bed. And while they were doing it,
they were still there the following morning.
They'd go get a screwdriver to take it apart so they could convert it, and they ended up cutting their hand open.
Oh dear. Well, they're not doing it very well. Look, it took me probably about 3 hours, if I'm honest. First time transforming.
Too long.
Considering I wasn't even reviewing the bloody thing, I was reviewing it. I was just doing it for comparison to the Fans Toys one. But both weren't fun. This is why I'm keeping the Takara Magnus, because it's the only one I can transform in under 4 minutes.
Mm.
You know, that's a good transformation. It's older, but it's simpler. You know, Fans Toys Magnus looks fabulous. Looks glorious in paint scene. Possibly the best painted figure.
I really like MPG Ginrai, Super Ginrai, because
everyone said is good.
He feels like an upscaled. He feels like a HasLab toy rather than a masterpiece toy. He's fun. He's complicated. He's
got his massive shoulder, his arms up for when he's in truck mode.
But that was the look. That's the look. He looks like he's supposed to. But it's fun to transform. It's easy to transform. There's no bits you've got to remember, because if you don't, you might break it. There's no fiddly little bits that you need to flip out for something to fit in. It's just an upscaled version of the original toy. There's some niggly bits in the cab guy, but otherwise, I hope any new mold going forward, because at the minute MPG just seems to be repaints mostly. Any new molds going forward are following on from that idea. And if this new Optimus Prime that none of us can figure out what it's for, it's just
I've got it on order, but I've not got a clue why.
Yeah, I mean, I want to try it out and just see what their thoughts behind it were, because that's going to inform where they're going now. And I think this is going to be an evolution of that Ginrai. They're going to simplify things, because they're not going to be anyone in the complicated stakes. Not these days. No. Third party has got that locked down.
But they can't scale with the Ginrai either, because it's like MP10 size.
Well, this is what I was going to say. This new whatever tag it's got.
What it is
it continue of MP44? Is it like they're trying to get like MP01, but then that was bigger, 10 set the scale, MP44 was cartoon, and where's this guy coming in? You know, is it supposed to flow?
I think it's going to be a couple of years before we can confidently say what its role was, because we need to see how it's going to influence things that come afterwards.
I'd like to see it be the start of a sort of subsection of Masterpiece, which isn't Toon, where I guess it goes back to the ideals that Masterpiece started with, where like, what if this was real, but brings it into more modern day articulation and engineering. I'd love to see that, where we could have figures which look a bit more grimy and realistic, where we're still keeping the sort of recognizable aesthetic and they can carry on with the Beast Wars, which I love, and carry on with the Toon style. But I would like to see that Prime be the start of like another section of it, where they're putting a more sort of realistic spin, which I guess is what they wanted to do when Masterpiece first came out, especially with what they tried to do with Starscream and the Seekers then. And I'd like to see that. So, but like Lee said, time's going to tell if that's actually what the intention is or what their intention is.
Whatever they do, it's not going to be finished. You're not going to have a complete lineup of anybody.
Ever.
They're never going to do every single G1 character. Absolutely not. It's just, you can finish Beast Wars, but you're not going to finish G1. But yeah, I'm a bit more skeptical as to what MPG is going to do. I think Ginrai has gone down very well, but I think it's still a big question mark for me. And Raiden was under MPG, wasn't it? That was the first one.
Yes.
And that made me wary. So I'm thinking, what's your angle? What's your direction? And I thought they were stepping away from Masterpiece. So
again, Rat Trap's on that imprint as well.
Well, Rat Trap, yeah. I don't know.
I mean,
I'm looking forward as hell to that.
We don't have any cultural context as Westerners as to where the line fits, because Takara is a Japanese company working in a Japanese market, and we don't understand that Japanese market because we're only interested really in Transformers, and the majority of our Transformers in our collection are going to be from Hasbro. Now, there may be a precedent for this kind of jumbled high-end collection that we're just unaware of. And it might make perfect sense to Takara, and it might make perfect sense to Japanese Transformers fans, and they're they're not having these discussions. But what muddies the water a little bit is T-Spark, which is Takara's new high-end imprint, which encompasses Diaclone, Brave,
Was
Zoid.
that Rodimus T-Spark, wasn't it?
That comes under T-Spark, but it's not a Transformers thing. It just encompasses everything that Takara Tomy currently has that it's doing like a masterpiece or high-end version of. So for Zoids, for example, they're redoing all the original Zoids like Missing Link, and that comes under T-Spark. So they're still model kits, you still build them, but they have more features and they're more articulated.
Jamie, welcome back. So, well, you're muted, Jamie.
He's lost his voice.
I was just listening to the
Best you've
Zoid
ever
stuff
seen,
there.
Jamie. Do you know
Yeah.
what? I felt really touched by it just then.
we tried to get all the third-party stuff out of the way whilst you were gone. But yeah, I thought it would be a good way to talk onto it. What I think we will do now, as we are coming into effectively the last hour, I've got 3 very good, very prolific, very talented photographers with me this evening, and I thought it would be good to open up a forum to Transformer photography. We've spoken about this before. I've spoken about this before with other guests on my channel. I will say this straight from the start. I don't consider myself a photographer. I'm just a Transformers fan who takes photos on his phone. It's as simple as that. But these gentlemen do it much better than I. So I thought it would be a good thing to do, gentlemen, to talk through what you guys do. Now, I haven't got any questions to necessarily throw at you because I don't know nearly enough about it, but maybe talk through what you have learned through your trips forward. I know you might get to a point where you're repeating yourselves a lot, but I know it's also a process that you're learning as you're going. So the floor is all yours. What have you kind of learned from taking photography, not just of Transformers, but, you know, it's a Transformers stream, so try and keep it Transformers themed.
Well, I'll go first because I'm the least experienced. Because
you are more than welcome.
I'm prolific. I take a lot of pictures, and every day I'm putting up a couple of figures everywhere. But I've just got a table in my studio with 2 big lights there, and I'm just doing this with my phone. That's it. I'm not editing the photos apart from resizing them because thanks to Jamie and his insistence that I get onto Instagram, I actually have an order, so I'll do Instagram because I write about it. So I try and educate people about the figure I'm showing off. I'll then duplicate that on Blue Sky. I'll catalog it on Facebook. I'll stick it in a couple of other places. But all I'm doing is making sure that the things are well lit, and I'm taking a standard set of pictures which show off the detail of the vehicle mode or whatever mode it's got, the detail of the robot mode, just relaxed, not doing anything, and then a couple of action poses. Whereas I know that Jamie is going to spend ages setting up an amazing scene with all sorts of special effects and whatever, and Phil that way actually edits his photos to bring out all the detail. So I've got a lot to learn, just like anyone else who's watching this at the minute, and I'm now going to listen to what they have to say.
Well, I mean, before we flow it up to these two, I'm quickly going because I've seen some of the things you've been posting around some of the I suppose Warhammer, like the settings are kind of like the broken down buildings. You've been doing some good dioramas and showing the lighting of that. Must be much harder with a structure that you're trying to create a war-torn look for, but then you still want to bring the light to it to make it pop for the photos.
Well, I'm currently building stuff so that I can take those sort of photos. So yeah, I'm using my connections in wargaming to get the materials together and the buildings together so that I can create an interesting scene. But the majority of it does come down to line, and I'm lucky because I have a room which I've had built specifically so I can do this sort of thing, which has got space for me to set stuff up, and also it's well lit, and I've got additional lights that I can just plonk down next to it. These are all just basic lights. I'm not making anything look like it's taken in night time. I'm not making it look like anything the sun's a different color or anything, or there's a sunset. I haven't even
Yeah.
touched on that. I want to, and Jamie, I think, is the expert here on those sort of photographs. But if you want some advice, I would say patience, lighting and patience. Light it as well as you can and just take your time. Because I started just sitting on my sofa, figure was there, and I was just doing that. And it's only recently, in the past year or so, that I've actually had a proper setup, and I'm very specifically taking a photo of something to make it look good.
That's
I
how,
think
that's
they
how
always
anyone
look
would start.
You flatter me, Jamie.
Right.
You flatter me.
Jamie,
I
Phil,
think
do you want to go on and into your world of it? What's kind of your treasure trove?
I mean, first thing I think is important to think about. It's always I don't want to sound too pretentious, but it's always a journey and a process. So I feel like every time there's like a subtle improvement from the time before, because I like to learn about new. I like to learn how to do new things. So with photography, I mean, when I started collecting toys, I was taking photos on my phone on the desk, and then I bought a cheap DSLR camera so I could take better photos on the desk with a lamp shining on them. And from that, it got, and I was just handheld camera auto settings, and then I got myself a light box, and that's when I kind of settled on the style which I wanted for my pictures, which was a sort of the clear white product photography style. And even then, for the first 2 years of doing that, and I only started taking photos of toys properly, and I got my camera after the COVID lockdown, so that would have been back end of 2020. Even from that, there was still so much where I look back on when I started my Instagram and I see the sort of inconsistencies in the pictures, and I think that's the journey which has took me to being a bit more consistent when Lee spoke about editing. So the first things I learned there was just how to set up a shot. And then I started to learn my camera, and taking nature photos really helped with that. So I learned about aperture and shutter speed and ISO. So I wasn't using a tripod before. Using a tripod has allowed me to keep my ISO low, which has meant when I've been shooting in RAW, which I started doing about a year ago, I could bring out the details a lot more in editing. And I was talking to Jamie about this in Manchester, about not lighting very much. Do you remember chatting about that? Because I've started actually putting them in the light box and trying to keep the light even, but I'm trying not to shine any light on the figures.
I've really just since Manchester, I've even went further back now in the lighting.
And then shoot in RAW and bring everything, the details up in edit.
You're right there, Lee.
He's being attacked by a hot air balloon or some description.
I was going to say, go outside, man.
So like I said, editing as well was a big thing. I never used to edit my photos. Probably for the first 2 years, I didn't edit them other than on my mobile phone, whack some settings up. And I actually got into editing because I took a camera lens, which I've just got, down to the quayside to photograph the bridges in Newcastle. And I took a bunch of photos, and there was dust because I was shooting in such a high, I was shooting at like f20 or something, or f18, and to get so much in focus. And again, it was learning on the job, but I found out I'd captured the dust on the lens. So I got a free trial of Lightroom so I could remove the dust from my pictures, so it wasn't a wasted morning. Once I got the free trial of Lightroom, I started putting my robot pictures into it and going, hang on a sec, I can actually separate the subject and the backdrop here, so I can control what this looks like. I can control how overexposed the backdrop is, and I can control the subject separately. And that's when I sort of started getting some consistency with the overall look of my pictures. And then it's just been, like I said, it's been learning to tripod. It's been learning the different settings, to set timers on my photos so that it was so I wasn't getting a blur from me moving. And I think editing's really important. I think learning to use your equipment, you're not going to be perfect and you're never going to be perfect, but appreciate the journey and learn from what you've done. I hope that makes some sort of sense.
I think lightbox photography seems easy when you begin, and then later, because I went going back to it, and you get lost with the colours easily in the lightbox because you don't have the context there to keep you true. And I think sometimes it's so easy to get lost. Oh, you finish a photo, you spent 6 hours editing, then you think, that looks nothing like the toy. I've got like completely different colours. Oh no, what about? Oh well, bugger it. I'm going to post it. But yeah, that's happened
I've
to me.
gone exactly down that train of thought. To be fair,
one of the most important things for me. Sorry, I was saying one of the most important things for me is to, because I don't use like Jamie's dioramas, is to. I'm just like I won't take a photo unless I think the toy looks like it could be standing naturally like that as a person. I need it to look like it's a living thing. Again, not want to sound too pretentious, but I have to like position the arms in tiny sort of ways to make it look like it's in a realistic position for what something living could do. Does that make sense? I tend to focus a lot on posing and on how much of it's in focus and where at what points, because I'm not using the sort of the bigger scale, which again I find incredibly impressive. I've discussed this with people before, but it's not for me. So I have to focus on that sort of minute posing, because with the light box, I feel like sometimes it does leave. There's nowhere to hide with it as well. I can't. It's literally just there, what's in front of you, instead of this cool scene. You've just got that on white and nothing else. So I tend to focus on making it look as alive as possible.
That's where probably like so you and I again do not class myself as a photographer, but we do.
You're a photographer.
Yeah, I guess. But there's cars and there's cars, mate. There's a Fiat and a Ferrari. So you have a light box like I do, because you and I have got not too dissimilar a setup. As you're right, the figure, the toy, or whatever you're taking is the dead centerpiece. The light box is there to provide a backdrop, but also not to be one. Whereas you have what Lee's doing at the moment with his new dioramas, and of course what Jamie has done many a time with dioramas, is adding as much of that to the photo as anything else to make it come to life. Whereas our style of it is forget all the other noise and just focus on the figure itself. But
I think what we have here is you've got 3 different people with 3 different. They're taking the pictures for 3 different reasons. Jamie is making a scene. He's bringing part of the lore to life with his toys. Phil is trying to show at one figure in the best possible light and the most natural way he can arrange it. Whereas with me, I want to show you the toy. So I've got a very standard shot off an angle of the vehicle mode. You can see the vehicle mode, standard shot of the guy just standing there. And then I'm going to have a bit of fun with it and pose it in different ways and maybe try and do something similar to what the other 2 are doing. So it's also about what you want to do with the toy. And there's lots of different things that you can do that, as we've all shown. There's a thing in miniature photography called the golden angle. So there's a certain angle, regardless of what pose the figure's in, where it looks most like itself, and you will get the best possible image. But again, you have to find it. You have to take your time, have a little play with the figure, get your positioning right, and then just go for it.
I think the golden angle, I think if you want to look at a true golden angle, is look at the early Warner Brother cartoons. And you'll see the golden angle used all the time. In fact, I think sometimes toy photographers get obsessed with the light and where the light's coming from and does it look natural. And I think sometimes you just got to comic it up and sometimes have fun. I use the sort of example here. I that's not the true reflection. That's the true color. That's what it looked like in my setup. And I had to do that twice, because the first time I did that, I really messed up the exposure. I put the exposure quite high, and because sometimes you just get into a routine, and I didn't think it through. And sometimes I because I was working with other characters, and I was setting the exposure high to get the true color, and it works because how the way the light goes. But I set the exposure too high, so I had to go back, redo the scene, because I couldn't fix it through editing, and it was just silly, even with the raw.
Just a quick question, Jamie. I don't want to subtract for what you're talking about at the moment
And
with
there
on screen.
is me just lighting up a bit more where it isn't true what it seemed, but I preferred that. It was more cartoon, it was more comic to me. And I liked it. I meant some of the detail was kind of lost. You know, like for example, you zoomed in, you could see some of the lines in Jazz was a bit lost by that point. But I was starting to move in with Tiff and starting to work with it was about that point I started to think I'm going to take a photo where I want it to look good on a big screen or a poster. And I wasn't going to do photos anymore for social media. So I was going to start doing something where it had to look good in a big format and had to look good with the change of color codes to get it printed out as well.
It's been a pleasure watching your work get more cinematic though, and seeing how your stuff's progressed over the last few years with your use of dioramas, and it's just become more widescreen, and really lovely to see.
Yeah, Jamie, your stuff's becoming aspirational.
It's becoming harder as well because because what I like is I'm going to stop share this if I can. What I like is I see your stuff, Lee. I see ArrowFyre stuff. And I've got to shut some windows down because I've got sharing too much. I see your stuff and it just fires the imagination. I saw a Plastic Craic do a photo a couple of months back with his sword, and I just thought, I want to do that photo. And I apologized. I said I'm going to copy that, and it's going to be. And I got hassle. I got lots of negative comments from people, but I didn't care because I just wanted to mimic it. And it was just beautiful, and it was so annoying because I thought I'm going to ace this, and then I did it, and I went, "Oh, this is still better." Oh well.
Don't worry, Jamie. I'm like that all the time. When I see some of my films, I'm like, I'm going to have a little go on it, and I don't even bother uploading it in the end. I'm like, oh, he's done it better than me.
And I like him, and I like ArrowFyre. I think the good thing about light boxes and stuff like that is you start to see the poses the characters are in, and you think, I want to put that pose in a diorama. Or you've got Lee who's showing you how. For one thing, I think Lee is better than Transformers Wiki because I want to look at his thing to see how it's transformed properly. So it's like I want to know some of the backstory as well, so I could pretend I know stuff on Instagram and Twitter. And I need Lee and I need Emgo. And if one of those two haven't got the damn figure, I'm like, what the heck? I'm kind of stuck. I have to make it up as I go along, and just fingers crossed I've transformed it right. But I look at this scene, and I really pushed back with the lighting. I use baking, what do you call it? Cooking tray paper, whatever, for ovens.
Baking tray paper.
Milan knows it's high heat. It's nice and cheap. You can put on different layers and thicken it. You can take the colour down. But what's good, it starts to soften the light. And what you might see there, I'll go to see if I can zoom in, is you'll see is this gizmo, which is attached to a hand. And I've got a plastic tray with that paper around it. And I use that to block light as well. And what that does is it started to help me control light so much better, and but I'm also sort of building some stuff, not to the extent that Lee's doing, but to help sort of create some scenes like that. And even then, I hand in heart, I kind of sexed up the colours a bit, just to get that red to shine a bit, but keep the details. And I think sometimes that's the fun about toy photography. I don't think you should stick yourself to rules. I think you should break all the rules that you can, and just learn by fun. And you go backwards, forwards. You go back 3 steps. You go forward 2 steps, and you come up with different ways of doing things. And you only got so many time in the day, and you wish you could spend more. But then I look at Starscream here. Starscream really is that vibrant. I have not jazzed up those colours. I kept having to check my figure and then shining light on it just to make sure I hadn't, made a mistake. And the thing about that photo is that's only one source of light. I use one source of light. It's 70 power. And with the character here, that's got 3 sources of light. You've got top light, You've got light in the front, you've got light coming from the side, so it's all lit up. You can see the shadows almost gone. But here, because he's so vibrant, he works so well with the one source of light. And I had a minor top light bouncing off and getting blocked. But you can see the shadows in the cloak. You know, it just worked with that figure. Sometimes it doesn't. There's no set standard of rules.
Just thinking around your dioramas, Jamie, what's your approach to doing those? So have you got one like that set up from scratch? Or do you sit there and go, I'm going to do a grass-based theme one today, like a forest one, or I'm going to do this? How do you do you set it purely up from scratch? Like, do you get the sand on that one?
I set it up from scratch, and then it sticks like that for 6 months. And I'll use and all the drawings will be stuck there. I was using snow, which lasted for 3 months, and I started to get really bored with the snow. And I kept thinking about. I mean, I think some people were going. I had some comments where they're going, "Oh, you're using fire." I wasn't actually using fire. I was using something else. And they're going, "Oh, that might have like bacteria and stuff in there." And I was thinking, I'm a cellular biologist. There's more in your phone. Trust me, there's worse in your phone. But I didn't want to engage in that type of discussion, But I started to think to myself, I'm so bored of the snow. And I like the grass, but the trouble with the grass, and I think I was speaking to Plastic Craic about that, it's quite springy. So sometimes I'll have the transformers on the grass, it's kept the pose, and the next thing I'm taking a photo and this transformer is like somersaulting towards my lens. And I'm thinking, how's it stored all this kinetic energy to come somersaulting?
Just take a photo quickly, you might get it in motion.
I've got some photos like that, and it's worked. It's always went, where's the wires? And I was thinking it's pinging up in it. I was lucky enough to get a shot off, But yeah, it's basically you build a diorama out and you make things work. That's brilliant.
Fair enough. Well, talking of diorama, Lee, this is one of yours.
Yeah, see, I'd finished building a building. I was just playing around with it, but I think it gives you, you can just play with your toys. It gives you freedom to play around with setups and things. So this is something fairly basic. You've got the giant robot, the truck's coming around the corner. Oh shit, there's a giant robot. But also you could work with angles. So here you've got Decibel, the cassette combiner. He's hiding from overcharge. He's hiding on top of the building, and there you've got the angle. I can mess around with focus. I was just taking a quick snap to see what I could do with it. And there you got another hiding scheme. So you don't need to have, you can do anything. You don't need to have a big wide out scene. You can get a bit more close, a bit more intimate, and just play with it like it was a movie. Just set up a story and click a few pictures, and then you've got a basic comic strip or something.
I'm looking forward to having a drunken conversation at TF Nation. Doesn't need to be drunken, but it would help.
Probably would be.
Because I often think about when we take toy photography, are we mimicking what we see in cartoons and movies, especially movies, where they're restrained by the lenses they use? Cartoons maybe mimic that, but cartoons really aren't restrained by lenses at all. But
that's why I started shooting with a 30mm, because I like shooting from a low angle, especially with the bigger robots. So the 30mm on an APS-C allowed me to get further down and keep the robots.
Are you full lens camera? Are you a full lens camera?
No, I use an APS-C. I use a Sony A6700. So it's not full frame. So I use the Sigma 30mm APS-C lens for that camera.
So that'd be about 50, wouldn't it?
Yeah, and I used to use the 50 again for the APS-C, which
would be like 70 or something.
Yeah, but using the 30s allowed me to pull it back, which means I can get that sort of lower angle and make them a bit more imposing. I've just sent Ian, I've sent you the before and after edit of today's photo just on Messenger, and I've got no idea if you can get it from there onto here, but you can see.
Give me a tick.
You can really see how much I'm bringing out in edit now compared to when I used to just try and take the photo as is and then whack everything up.
Because I wanted to have a discussion where you teach me. So, because the thing I've been trying to practice is improve my editing, and try to, because I just looked at some of your stuff and I love that. I love the fact you bring the colours out because it means you have full control of the detail from the onset.
But also have to try and make it look natural as well, which is tricky sometimes. But then I was editing. Did you see the photo I took of Megatronus where we had the fire? He had the flames in front of him. And then I edited the light from the fire, I edited onto him. So like I was like adjusting the color gradients on parts of his body to look like the fire was reflecting onto him.
Oh, that's cool.
But that was all done in edit. Like I didn't have the orange lights on him. It was just took as is, and then I edited the firelight onto him using gradients. So that was what came on my camera today because I picked up Red Alert this morning or this afternoon. So that again, it's very dark. I'm not putting a lot of light on, but I'm shooting in RAW. It was shot with quite a high f-stop as well, so I could get a lot of it in focus on about 1/3 of a second on a tripod. And then I put it into Lightroom and I edited quite a lot to make it look more like what I could actually see. So there's quite a severe difference.
That's huge difference from what you took to begin with.
But it's the same image. It's in RAW. The detail's all there.
That is professional quality. Like you would imagine seeing that on
toy boxes.
That or an official Transformers post on a social media platform saying, "Look what's coming out in like Wave 6."
Product photography with a soul. It's kind of what I go for. But keeping the whites separated from the backdrops really hard as well, as you know.
I love how you got Starscream's eyes. Still, you can tell they're not like sunken in his face. You can still tell they're yellow. No, that takes some real talent. Which every time I try and do it, I go, "Oh yeah, I can do that." No, I can't. But yeah.
I've also started reducing the exposure on the areas with shadows as well, so I can keep shadows in it. And then I've even added shadows into some of them in edit. So yeah, learning all the time.
Oh man, it's crazy. I mean, I'm in awe of what people do. I mean, I hasten to show one of mine for what I've got. It's not the thing is as well. One of the reasons why I don't want to show one of mine is that Jamie knows this because I've spoken to him about it. Is you upload stuff to social media these days, but Jamie said this to me for years and years, and I did not quite get what he meant until one day it just clicked. It's the fact that when you put it up onto a social platform, the picture loses its resolution, loses its quality every time. And I really didn't click that until somewhat recently when I was flicking through and I go, well, my original photo is better than that.
Blue
this is the final
worst for that. Blue sky kills your resolution.
Oh, yes, to be honest, they're all as bad as each other in many ways. But for the sake of it, for the ones that I like to do, I'll show.
Do you know which one the best is TikTok doesn't kill your resolution. Have a look at your pictures on TikTok. The resolution's still excellent on that.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, I must be doing something wrong because my TikTok resolution sucks. I need to go into the app.
Yeah, I love that picture. I remember.
Yeah,
that's an older one of mine, and it's more pixelated than I would have liked. But I like to go for and again, it's that Optus Pexus. We're back to that. It's been the star of the stream tonight, but I like that kind of lower angle, like you were saying, Phil. It gives a bit more of a dynamic approach rather than. Okay, look, G1 bots, they're big bricks. You can't do a lot with them, and this guy you can, but they can just stand still and look a little bit motionless. And so I thought going for the lower down angle just gave a little bit more. But yeah, as I was getting all of these images ready, I was like, oh no, they're all more or less just a little bit pixelated here and there. But some pop for the camera more than others. But there you go. Let's get away from that.
What camera are you using?
Me? Well, it's my phone. It's still my phone. Because quite honestly, it's just down to, and I appreciate I'm saying this to proper photographers, it's just down to convenience. It's down to, I can take the photo quickly. I've got the Lightroom app on my phone, which Phil's instructed me to get, and it's good, even though it has limited functionality because I'm a tight ass. But I can do what I can on it. And it's helped, but My DSLR camera is a bit of an older one. And when I've taken photos of it, I feel like my phone is better, but also my phone isn't amazing at the same time. It's just better than my older digital camera.
Well,
Then
I've
if I
got
take
one
them
of
on a
these,
digital camera, I've got to get it off that, and I've got to get it onto the computer, and that's a faff in itself.
but I've not used.
I send my pictures straight to my phone, and then edit on Lightroom Mobile Pro. So
how do you send them to your phone?
It's got a wireless connection between my phone and my camera.
Yeah,
and that doesn't hurt the image?
Tablet.
Nah, because I'm sending the full quality raw file.
Oh wow! No,
but then my brother, Mark, he shoots his desktop quick shots, and he just uses
he uses a Google Pixel.
Yeah, Google Pixel, innit?
Yeah, bloody Mark, his ones as well. Like, how does he do it?
I personally think mobile phones are getting worse at photography compared to I think there was a sweet period, and I think the trouble with AI and automation, but it's taken away a lot of the control, and the raw control has been made unnecessarily complicated. I wanted to show an example there. So that's been subtly sexed up, as I like to say. But there's a original image where that's actually quite a high exposure. That I think that was like a 1+ exposure, and I've done that to get as close as possible to match what I see with the eye, to match the color with shockwave, and funny enough, in the actual camera yourself, I tend to do a shot like this, where I'm not worried about the focus. I'm focusing on the color. So I'll do it different stops. I'll do it like f-stop, 3.2, f4, f5, and I'll get to match the color like you see here. So I'll have a point of reference when I come to edit to make sure I've not lost my way, even though it might not be as in focus or look as good. There's going to be something wrong, like the pose isn't right. That way, when I go to do this shot, which is all about getting the character into focus, and I'll call it 1A, the first tip, so I can start editing and cleaning up, removing dust, because my God, dust gets everywhere. Or sometimes it's because the plastic's rubbish and specks of light, and I just don't like that, the way it shines off. I can start to edit.
Bad lads.
Yeah, and sometimes they leave little hairs, so you're taking the photo and it's a freaking
This is the wife's makeup brush that she never used, so that comes in handy.
Yeah, and so and that's the sort of image you sort of eventually get to, and that's what I like, and I don't know. I think with camera, I think the advantage with working with a camera is you work with less light and you have much more control.
Better control. That's it.
Yeah, and it makes it easier. And I think once you set it up in your camera, you reduce the editing you need to do on your PC or computer or app. And that's something that Liam Soapbox taught me, is that, when he started to work with raw files for the first time, I think he was doing a photo shoot for Hasbro. I think he was doing some of the Siege Transformers, and he hadn't really been working with raw files before until then. That was a sort of wake-up call, and he just was mind-blowing about the control. And I remember when I started, I don't always work with raw files, but I do prefer it. It just makes it such a cleaner image.
I even take photos of my kids now in RAW. Like, I take my family photos in RAW when I use my camera now. The first thing was when I took a photo of Legacy Menasor, and I took it in RAW, and because of the position of his shoulders and the position where I had the light, half his face was in shadow. And I put an exposure radial gradient over the part of his face which was shadowed and brightened the exposure, and it just brought his face back again. And I thought that the data is there. Just because you can't see it in that picture I took, it still recorded what I could see in front of me, even though it came out shadowed. So to be able to bring it back and not lose quality was unbelievable.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Well, gentlemen, it's been very interesting hearing all of your slants on photography. It's something that you can talk about at TF Nation, and just people who just want a message. I think it's really useful just hearing everyone's different journeys, because there's loads of people who want to get into it, who don't feel confident, who don't feel they got the right setup or just the right eye for it. But I think, as you've shown, that anyone can, and we've all got to learn from somewhere. But just hearing your insights has been really useful. I'm
just looking forward to seeing Lee some photos, and he needs to do some homage to the Man of Iron, the first British. Oh, I've got the name. Or was it Iron Man? The first sort of British comic Transformer stories with those buildings he's got. He needs to have some homage there. I need to see that soon.
You've been told in no uncertain terms. You've been given a deadline now as well. But yeah, see how it goes. But what I'll do then is just do a quick round robin of all of my guests here tonight as we close out on the stream. Lee, you've obviously got your tag on screen there, Instagram. But what's cooking in the world of Spiderfather at the moment in terms of presence, activity, photos, or potential YouTube or otherwise?
Well, I've nearly finished my studio, so I'm hoping once that's all completed and everything's in its right spot, and I know where to grab everything, because toys will actually be on shelves instead of boxes, I'll be able to do a lot more. And Jamie, the buildings take time to paint, unfortunately. And it's got to be painted well, otherwise they're just going to look crap. So I'm working on it. I do still aim to have a video on a YouTube channel before we all see each other in the flesh again in August.
Before TF Nation?
Yes. I've set myself a deadline.
So what's it? Do we get a bit of a scoop as to what this might be? Any tease?
It could be one of a number of things. I haven't decided yet.
Oh, okay. You tease us on that, but okay, it'll be good to see. And yeah, it'll be good to see what goodies turn up at TF Nation as well, as your Santa Claus bag of tricks turns up, as we'll maybe see.
He's still on my desk. Lockdown. I've got a few.
Yeah, lockdown. I've still got loads of lockdowns to give out if people come see me. But Jamie, I got you something, specifically you, because you're constantly bitching that I never get you anything.
I don't.
Jamie, that sounds like you. Very much sounds like you.
I think I am so lucky to be in the company of such gifted, wonderful Transformer fans who ignites their No, but I think that it's something. It's like a double-edged sword, because, like I said before, I see your stuff and my gut is to mimic it, and I have to hold myself back. I see what Lee's doing of these buildings and I want to mimic it, but no.
Imitation is just a serious form of flattery, and it gets the creative juices going as well. It makes you think of something that you haven't thought of. I think as long as you're not obviously just like straight up ripping someone, or if you just said, look, I've had to recreate it because it's so good. If it's done with enjoyment.
Fun. If Jamie copies anything I do, I will find something where they only made 300 of it and do it again. Then see if he can copy that.
Yeah. That's how you kind of have the master stroke.
I do a full photo shoot in the Axalong of my Days of Future Past box set. You copy that one, you bastard.
I will when you buy me that bloody box. I'll never get that. Phil, let's go on to you. What's cooking for yourself? We'll see you at TF Nation, I believe. But
100%.
Any particular photography escapades you've got coming up at all?
Just continue, shoot more things. I want to.
You're going to come up to your annual YouTube video coming up, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that'll be out at the end of December. As always, I don't have the enthusiasm, man, to do YouTube videos. My son keeps telling me I should do more, but I'm like, no, I don't have the enthusiasm.
You've got to keep the trend now. One a year.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I post daily. I tend to post daily. Just keep buying, keep photographing, and I think I need a bit of a refresh at the moment, because I'm looking at me chug shelves and I'm thinking, I don't know where like Blue Grimlock, who's sat next to me here, is going to go. So it might be time for a bit of a cull and refresh to keep it fluid. But I tend to post daily in all the usual places. But yeah, don't expect another YouTube video till January.
But they do come just once a year. They do come.
Yeah, it makes it all the more special.
There you are, exactly that. Jamie, what about you, chap? Because obviously we know we'll see you every Friday on Transformers the Show, but is there anything that you've got cooking?
Share that screen and I can show you what I'm trying to do. I got some mirrors. I've ordered some mirrors from Amazon, and it's probably not going to work, but I'm trying to use more natural light. That photo was taken with natural light, because when I used light from above, it took away the black. You know, you're just seeing the reflection of it hitting off the object. And I had to stop doing that. And I had one wee digital light, but my cat came into my office area and I panicked because my cat brings in all her hair and she likes to go and inspect everything. And no matter how much I beg her to leave, she won't until she's fully happy. So it's like a half-hour endeavour of she's fully inspecting my photography area. But she opened up my door. It was really bright and the sun came in. It happened to hit my mirrors I had already set up and it was shone in there. And I just went, oh, wow. That worked. I was like, so I took a photo using totally natural light with one digital light support just to help lighten the sort of underneath area of the tank. And I was really impressed by that. And I don't think anyone else realised. They probably thought I had lots of digital light or, you know, other lights going on there. And I was thinking, no, it's natural light. It's like the first time I've ever really used natural. Because normally I'm trying to keep blocking out light. I've got like, you know, I've got curtains and stuff blocking out light and I'm trying to darken, I'm trying to control the light. And that time my whole room was lit up like a Christmas tree and it was the opposite to what I've always been doing. And I just thought, oh, that was cool. So I'm just experimenting. So I've got some more mirrors and I'm going to see. It'll probably be a disaster. I remember doing something with Ultra Magnus with red light and I did lots of photos. No one's ever seen them because they're absolutely awful. But I was just trying different stuff. So experimenting away.
I do want to just give you another little shout out as well, because I'm sure you would have mentioned it on the show, but I'll mention it here. You can, of course, get some of Jamie's wonderful photos in postcard form at the Transformers Battersea store in South London. Can you not? So It's quite nice to see this little pack of Jamie's photos, all in little nicely wrapped postcards, and on the back of it saying a Hasbro licensed product credited to Storm Toy Photography.
Incredibly cool.
I think to see your name in lights is absolutely bloody brilliant, mate.
I know. I still don't know how to. I've not properly computed that yet. I will do. Once I've properly computed it, I'm going to be insufferable. It's just not.
More than usual. Watch them and hand them out as business cards at TSN.
I'm waiting for that. I'm waiting for it.
I'm going undercover to the store buying lots of stacks. you know, raincoat, different moustaches. Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's a hell of an accolade. Yeah. No, it's a hell of an accolade, mate. And it must be so cool seeing your photos in a shop, in the only Transformers shop. So, I mean, I was there with you at the day when they were unveiled, and it's a really cool moment. We've spoken about tonight.
Bought out of choice. Some people actually bought out of choice there that day, and I'm just like,
mate, I mean, I'm your friend. You should give them to me for free, but I'm just saying. You know. And just actually, what I want to do, just to quickly wrap off tonight. Not that I like to kind of big up something else of myself, but as I say, got my he's going to get annoyed with me for that. Our Beast Wars podcast, that's just Primer Beast Wars podcast, which has, as of today, cleared 1,000 combined listens, which I'm very, very pleased with that. It's not including YouTube. There's Psychotron, he's happy. And I want to give a big shout out to my co-host, Chris Carnage Creations. He does a lot of the lion's share of the editing. He's done really, really well, just keeping that going, and got some guests on, and got a very nice guest lined up soon.
It's because of you. I've got a Beast Wars collection. It's because of you.
You sounded so angry when you said that.
It's a good.
I know, because when I first started doing Transformers YouTube, and I was dead set against Beast Wars. Beast Wars was a running joke, and then over the 2 years, then by the third year,
everything that Pete tells you.
Yeah, I was going, I really like this. I really like Beast Wars, actually. I've started watching the cartoons and I thought, this stuff rocks. Oh, God.
You've been reading the comics as well. Yeah, that's just it.
The comics are brilliant. Yeah.
It's yeah. I just want to give a shout out to Chris there because he does do a lot of the work, and I do literally turn up. So well done, Chris. And
Seems like a
that's
nice
really
guy.
good. He's a good lad.
Online, a nice guy.
Yeah.
He's a good bloke.
And Chris
So
also has a YouTube channel. If anyone wants to check that out.
of course, I'll put Chris.
Because of where he lives in the world, he's been getting a lot of stuff before everybody else.
Yeah. He's been getting Australia's been really, really lucky for its chug releases at the moment. Like he's still got Silverbolt. We still haven't got Silverbolt. He got Scorponok about 2 months ago, but that was because Show Z were terrible shipping it. But never mind.
Then I've got big spiders and wasps.
Oh yeah. To be fair, nature that wants to kill you. Early Transformers toys. Let's weigh it up a little bit.
No.
All right, we'll start to wrap it up there. I'll put everyone's links to all of their social medias, to their platforms, and including Chris as well, who hasn't been on the show tonight. But big thank you to everyone who's coming along. Big thank you to everyone who's watching. If you've enjoyed watching the Champions League final and then came back to watch this, thank you all the same. Thanks for watching. As always, I will see you on the next one. End stream. Streamy end.